Okay, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody. And today, we're going to be tackling something that I think a lot of you guys struggle with.
Yeah.
And that is how to think less and speak more.
Yeah.
To improve your English fluency, to sound more natural.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be taking a look at some really great material that we found on YouTube.
Yep.
It's from the channel Easy English Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And the video is called Think Less, Speak More.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to kind of like pull out the main points from this video and really analyze them. And hopefully you can take some really good stuff away from this.
Yeah, I mean, so many people who are learning English come to us and say they want to improve their speaking.
Right.
They want to sound more natural and more fluent.
Right.
And when you look at the problems that people have, one of the main ones is this idea of thinking too much when you try to speak English.
Right.
So what happens is people pause,
Right.
they hesitate,
Yeah.
they translate in their head,
Yeah.
and they worry about making mistakes. And all of these things are like using the brakes in a car when you're trying to drive fast.
Right.
They slow you down.
Totally.
Or they even make you completely stop.
Absolutely. And they actually use that analogy in the video.
Oh, okay.
They say that overthinking when you're speaking English is like driving a car and constantly checking all the mirrors
Right.
and all the gauges in the dashboard.
Yeah.
And that's why you can't go very fast.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's a really good analogy.
It is, yeah.
And so, like, what is at the heart of this overthinking problem?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues is fear.
Okay.
Fear of making mistakes.
Right.
So many learners are so worried about making mistakes
Yeah.
that it prevents them from actually speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that the video makes this point that native speakers don't analyze every sentence when they speak their native language.
That's so true.
We don't think about grammar rules.
No.
We don't think about vocabulary. We just speak.
Right. And it's the same for every native speaker of any language.
Yeah.
Nobody's sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what's the past participle of this verb?
Exactly.
Like, nobody does that.
Yeah. And the more you focus on perfection,
Right.
the less confident you become
Yeah.
and the less you actually speak.
Yes.
Which is the worst thing you can do
Right.
if you want to improve.
Yeah, because you need that practice.
Exactly.
But the good news is that the video gives us some ways to overcome this.
Yes, it does.
So let's jump into that now. So the main message of this video is to speak more and think less.
Mm-hmm.
And they really say that this is the secret to fluency.
Yeah.
So what happens when you speak more and you think less?
Well, first of all, you become more confident.
Okay.
So when you stop analyzing every word
Right.
and you allow yourself to just speak,
Yeah.
you are actually training your brain to handle conversations more naturally.
Okay.
It's like when you're playing a sport,
Uh-huh.
if you're constantly thinking about your moves, you're going to be slow and hesitant. But if you trust yourself and you just react to the game,
Yep.
your reactions will become faster and more effective.
Right. So it becomes more of like an automatic response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It becomes intuitive.
I like that word, intuitive.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second benefit that they mentioned is that you will become more fluent.
Yeah.
So the more you speak, the easier it becomes to form sentences
Mm-hmm.
and the less you will hesitate.
Yeah. And I think this is something that a lot of learners experience.
Yeah.
You know, they want to say something,
Right.
but they're so worried about getting it right that they just freeze up.
Right.
But the more you practice,
Yep.
the easier it becomes to just let the words flow out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The third benefit that they mention is that you will sound more natural.
Okay.
So as we said earlier,
Hmm.
native speakers don't think about grammar rules when they're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So when you speak more freely,
Yep.
you can start to emulate that. You can start to sound more like a native speaker.
And what's interesting is they actually say that sometimes advanced learners
Oh, really?
who focus too much on grammar can sound a little robotic
Interesting.
because they're thinking too much about the rules.
Right. So it's almost like they're overcorrecting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. The next benefit is that you will develop a natural rhythm.
Okay.
So when you're not constantly stopping to think,
Right.
your speech will be smoother
Mm-hmm.
with fewer pauses and restarts.
Yeah.
And then this one, I think, is a really important one.
Okay.
They say that you will actually learn faster
Oh,
when you speak more.
Okay.
So the more you speak, the more your brain will start to recognize patterns in the language
Mm-hmm.
automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you don't need to consciously memorize all the rules.
Right.
You just kind of absorb them
Yeah.
through practice, through exposure.
It's like how children learn their first language.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't sit down with grammar books.
No, they just listen.
Yeah, they listen, they copy it.
They copy, they try, and they fail, and they try again.
Yeah, and eventually they start to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, they said that when you speak more and think less, you will enjoy learning English more.
Okay.
And it will be less stressful.
Right, because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself.
Exactly.
To be perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we can all agree with.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when you're not stressed,
right.
It's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about some of the common fears that prevent people from speaking.
Okay.
Because I think this is something that we all experience.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Definitely.
So the first fear that they mention is the fear of making mistakes. And this is a huge one.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of learners are so afraid of making mistakes
right.
that they're just too scared to speak.
And it's understandable.
It is understandable.
You know, nobody wants to make mistakes. But the problem is that mistakes are a natural part of learning.
Yes.
They're proof that you're trying.
Right.
That you're making an effort.
They're how you learn.
Exactly.
That's like if a baby was learning to walk.
Right.
And they fell down the first time.
Yep.
Are they going to never try to walk again?
No, of course not.
No, they're going to keep trying.
Exactly.
Until they get it right.
And it's the same with language learning.
Yeah.
You have to make mistakes in order to improve.
And I think it's a really good point that they made in the video that mistakes are actually good because they show you what you need to work on.
Yeah.
So instead of being afraid of mistakes,
right.
you should try to see them as opportunities to learn.
Yeah, embrace the mistakes.
Yeah.
They're your friends.
They're your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second fear that they mentioned is the fear of being laughed at. And this is another big one.
It is, yeah.
Especially, I think, for people who are maybe a little bit more shy or introvert. You know, they're worried that if they speak English,
right.
people are going to make fun of them.
Or judge them for their accent or their grammar.
But what the video says is that most native speakers are actually very respectful of people who are trying to learn their language.
Yeah.
They're not going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
They're going to be impressed that you're making the effort.
And most people are so busy with their own lives
Right.
that they're not really paying attention to your mistakes anyway.
Exactly.
They've got their own problems to worry about.
Yeah, and even if you do encounter someone who is rude or judgmental, the video says that you shouldn't let their opinion define your progress.
Exactly.
Like, don't let one bad experience ruin your whole journey.
Yeah, their opinion doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's your progress that matters.
Yes. The third fear is the fear of not finding the right words.
Yeah, this is a common one.
Yes.
A lot of learners feel like they need to have a huge vocabulary in order to speak English fluently.
But that's not true.
No.
You can communicate very effectively with a limited vocabulary.
Yeah.
You can use simple words. You can use gestures. And you can find synonyms for words that you don't know.
Right. And the video even makes the point that native speakers forget words sometimes.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And we just find other ways to say what we mean.
Exactly. So you don't need to know every single word
Nope.
to have a conversation.
And sometimes it's even better
to
use simpler language.
Right, because it's clearer.
Exactly.
And then the final fear that they mention is the fear of getting stuck.
Yeah.
So this is that feeling of, you know, you're in a conversation and your mind goes blank.
And you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You panic.
Yeah, you panic.
Yeah.
And the video gives a really good tip for this.
Okay.
They say that you should use filler phrases.
Oh.
So these are phrases like,
let
me think.
Yeah.
Or, that's a good question.
Right. Or, you know, just give me a second. And these phrases give you time to think.
Yeah.
Without the conversation becoming awkward.
Right. They buy you some time.
Exactly.
To gather your thought.
But they also make you sound more natural.
Yeah, because native speakers use filler phrases all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about some practical strategies.
Okay.
To help you think less and speak more.
Sounds good.
Because I think this is what everybody's waiting for.
Yeah, give us the tips.
Give us the tips.
Yeah.
So the first tip is to speak without preparing too much.
Okay.
And I know this sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Because a lot of learners like to plan out what they're going to say.
Yeah, they want to rehearse it in their head.
Yeah, exactly.
Before they say it out loud.
But the video says that this is actually not helpful. because it prevents you from developing that natural fluency.
Right. You're not really speaking spontaneously.
Exactly.
You're just reciting something that you've already prepared.
Yeah. So they say that you should just start speaking and then correct yourself later if necessary.
It's like learning to ride a bike.
Oh,
you don't plan out every single movement.
Right.
You just get on the bike and start pedaling.
And you fall down a few times.
Yeah, and you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And eventually you can ride without thinking about it.
Exactly.
And it's the same with speaking.
Yeah. You just got to jump in.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Oh.
The second tip is to practice speaking out loud every day.
Okay.
Even if you don't have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
You can talk to yourself. You can describe what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can narrate your day.
You can have a conversation with yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. You can do all sorts of things.
And this might feel strange at first.
Yeah.
But it's a really good way to get comfortable with the sounds of English and to practice speaking without feeling self-conscious.
Right.
Because nobody's listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The third tip is to use a technique called shadowing.
Okay, what's that?
So shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and you repeat what they're saying.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Okay.
So you're basically trying to copy their pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm, everything.
And this is a really good way to train your brain to process English more quickly because you have to react in real time.
Yeah.
You don't have time to think about the grammar.
Right.
You just have to say the words.
Exactly. And there are lots of resources online that you can use for shadowing.
Oh, cool.
Like you can find videos or audio recordings of native speakers, and you can just shadow along with them.
Great.
The fourth tip is to put yourself in situations where you have to speak English.
Okay. So like what?
So this could be joining a speaking group.
Yeah.
Talking to strangers. Using voice chat in language learning apps.
Right.
Just anything where you're forced to use English. To communicate.
And when you're in a situation where you have to speak English, your brain will find a way to make it work.
Exactly.
You'll be surprised at how much you can actually understand and say.
Yeah, because you don't really have a choice.
Yeah, you have to communicate.
Yeah. And the final tip in this section is to stop translating in your head.
Yeah.
So a lot of learners, when they're speaking English, they'll think of what they want to say in their native language.
Right.
And then they'll translate it into English.
Yeah.
But this is a really bad habit.
It is, yeah.
Because it slows you down. And it often results in unnatural sounding sentences.
Right, because you're not thinking in English. You're thinking in your native language and then trying to convert it.
Exactly, English. So the video says that you need to train your brain to think directly in English.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, they say that one of the best ways to do this is to surround yourself with English as much as possible.
Okay.
So watch English TV shows and movies. Listen to English music.
Yeah.
Read English books and articles.
Right.
You can even change the language settings on your phone and your computer to English.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And the more you expose yourself to English, the more your brain will start to think in English automatically.
Yeah, it becomes more natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some of the bigger strategies. But the video also gives some really simple daily practices that you can do.
Okay, let's hear them.
So the first one is the 1-minute speaking challenge.
Okay.
So this is where you choose a topic.
Any topic?
Any topic. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And you speak about it in English for 1 minute.
Okay.
Without stopping.
For a whole minute?
For a whole minute.
Okay.
And the goal here is to build up your speaking stamina and to get comfortable with just speaking continuously.
Yeah.
Even if you make mistakes.
Right.
And as you get better at this, you can gradually increase the time.
Yeah. So start with 1 minute and then maybe go to 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Exactly. And so on.
Yeah.
The second daily practice is to talk to yourself in English throughout the day.
Yeah, we mentioned this before.
Yeah, we did.
But it's worth repeating.
It is worth repeating.
Because it's so important.
It is.
So just describe what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're thinking in English.
Even if it's just little things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm making breakfast.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to the store.
Or I'm feeling tired.
Yeah, or I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, exactly.
The third practice is to record yourself speaking English.
Okay.
And then listen back to the recording. And this can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to hear yourself objectively.
Right.
And identify areas where you need to improve.
Yeah.
So maybe you notice that you're making the same grammar mistake over and over again. Or maybe you realize that your pronunciation isn't very clear. So by listening to yourself, you can become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and it can also help you to track your progress.
Yes, definitely.
So you can listen to a recording that you made a month ago.
Yeah.
And compare it to a recording that you made today.
Right.
And see how much you've improved.
Yeah. The next practice is to use a mirror.
A mirror. Okay.
Yeah, so stand in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
And have conversations with yourself in English.
Okay.
And this might sound a little silly.
Yeah, it does.
But it can actually be really helpful.
Okay.
Because it allows you to see yourself speaking English.
Right.
And to get comfortable with your facial expressions and your body language.
Yeah, because sometimes we can be so focused on the words that we forget about our nonverbal communication.
Yeah, and that's really important too.
It is, yeah.
The next practice is to sing along to English songs.
Oh, that's a fun one.
It is a fun one.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really good way to improve your pronunciation and your rhythm.
Yeah, because music is full of repetition.
Yeah.
And it helps you to internalize the sounds of English. And it's just fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
And finally, the last daily practice is to talk to at least one person in English every day.
Okay.
So this could be a friend,
yeah,
a language exchange partner, a teacher,
a colleague.
Yeah, anyone.
Anyone.
And it doesn't have to be a long conversation.
You know.
It could just be a few minutes.
Yeah.
But the important thing is to make it a habit.
Right.
To speak English every day.
To make it part of your routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of information.
It was.
But I think it was all really valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
So to kind of sum up, the main message of this video is that you need to speak more.
Yep.
And think less.
Think less.
If you want to improve your English fluency.
Yeah.
And sound more natural.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake that learners make is waiting until they feel ready to start speaking.
You'll never feel ready?
You'll never feel ready.
So you just have to start.
You just have to start.
Yeah.
And remember that mistakes are not failures.
No.
They are opportunities to learn.
Yeah, they're proof that you're improving.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid of them.
Embrace them.
Yeah.
So challenge yourself to speak English every day.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps.
Yes, yeah.
Surround yourself with English as much as possible. And most importantly, don't give up.
Keep going.
Keep going.
You can do it.
You can do it.
So as a little challenge for you guys,
great.
I want you to, right after you finish listening to this, I want you to spend just 1 minute.
1 minute.
Speaking out loud in English.
Okay.
About anything.
Anything at all.
Yeah. It could be about what you learned today. It could be about your plans for the weekend.
Yep.
It could be about your favorite food.
Right.
Just anything that comes to mind.
But the important thing is to speak.
Yeah.
For 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
Without stopping.
No stopping.
And don't write anything down. Don't prepare.
Just speak.
Just speak.
From the heart.
From the heart.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for today's deep dive.
Okay.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
I hope so too.
And I hope you learned something useful.
Yeah, me too.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye.